Welcome to the Tech Data Azure video series. My name is Sean Taylor, a Microsoft Solutions Architect within Tech Data in the UK. In this particular video, we're going to look at creating and configuring Azure Site Recovery. If you've looked at the previous videos, you'll notice that we're on a different virtual machine this time, so this is acting as my Hyper-V host. There's a couple of prerequisites before we can actually get ASR up and running, and that realistically is some storage and some networking. So we're going to start off by creating a virtual network. So network services, virtual network, and we'll do a quick create, and this is basically going to be used for our ASR test failover. Effectively, you want this so it can't communicate with the rest of your infrastructure, so important that you make sure that if you are going to test ASR, you really don't want any of the virtual machines being able to communicate with anything else. So we'll leave that on there. So we'll create our quick ASR test failover network. We're then going to create an ASR storage account so that we can allocate specific storage to the service. So new storage account, quick create, and we'll have this as TD ASR storage, and we want that again in Northern Europe. So we've created our prerequisites, so the test network and the ASR storage account. Just wait for that to finish, and then we will go and we will create our recovery vault. Okay, so completed and completed. Good. And again, this time we want recovery services, and last time we created a backup vault, this time we're going to create a site recovery vault. So this is our TD ASR vault. Brilliant, it's going to let us use that, and again we are in Northern Europe. And we want, recovery services. And that's the one that we've just created. So we're into the dashboard. We then specify what our recovery options are going to be. So you'll notice that you've got on-prem VMM to Azure, you've got on-premise VMM servers, so you can get it to monitor between two on-premise solutions running VMM. You've got Hyper-V to Azure, you've got two on-premise VMware solutions in the same way that you've got VMM, You've also got 2 on-premise VMMs with SAN array replication. If you have enabled the preview features, you would be able to see between an on-premise VMware solution and an Azure solution. So that functionality is coming. So first thing we need to do is create a Hyper-V site. TD Contoso Corp. So there's the site being created. We'll just nip back to the landing page. Very similar to the backup process is the fact that I need to first of all download my registration key. And there it is. We're going to save that as, and we will put that into documents. And once the registration key has been downloaded, what we can then do is we can download the actual installation software itself. So again, I'll save that and we'll put it in the same place. Then just going to run through the installation process. For the purpose of the demo, we'll not have Windows Update enabled, and we're going to accept the default location. Fantastic, so continue that one, and we're going to connect directly without using a proxy, and this is where we're going to browse and locate our credentials file. Fantastic. So next that one. That's brilliant. So the installation has been successful and my physical server has been registered. So we're now moving our way through. So we've created the site, we've prepared our Hyper-V server, we've already created a storage account and a virtual network. So the next thing that we can do is actually create a protection group. So this is basically a logical placeholder that we're going to add our virtual machines into. So this will be our TD Contoso protection group 1. That's the source location. The target is going to be from Azure. We're using that subscription, and we should be able to pick the storage account that we created a little bit earlier on. And then we can specify the initial settings for replication. So do you want it 30 seconds, every 5 minutes, every 15 minutes? We'll leave that on the default. You've also got the ability to retain a number of recovery points, so how long do you keep them for? You've also got the ability to stipulate an application crash consistent snapshot, and when do you want the replica to be created. So again, you could create that immediately, or we could schedule that for out of busy times. So we'll leave that on the default, and that will create the protection group. So that's the protection group created. You can of course create multiple protection groups with different schedules, and then obviously add the appropriate virtual machines into the appropriate protection group. So I've just selected the protection group that we just created. We're then going to choose to add our virtual machines, and we should be able to see a list of the VMs which are located on this host, which we've been able to do so. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick a few in order to load onto our environment. So let's take SQL. We need to stipulate what the operating system is, and away we go. While that's running in the background, I'm going to pick another couple. So let's have that one. And again, that's running Windows. And then we'll add one final one on the SharePoint. And away we go. And the remaining virtual machines that are in this particular host, I could create another protection group, and I might want them being synchronized on a different schedule to the one that I've specified for this particular group. So it's really down to you to define what virtual machines go in which protection group, depending on the schedule that you wish to create. So now that we have all of our virtual machines listed as status of being protected, the ASR is up and running, and we'll be synchronizing between the on-prem and the cloud service. Just have a look at one of these in a little bit more detail. We've got the details with regards to the VM, what it's got, and then the equivalent information from the Azure. We can go and we can configure, and from there what we're able to do is stipulate, should this ever spring into life, the size of the virtual machine that it will actually use. So let's give it a bit of grunt, and yes, we're going to save the changes. And what we can now do is we can test our failover. So what's the virtual network that we're going to use for the test failover? So this is where we choose our ASR test failover, which is isolated from the rest of our Azure estate and our site-to-site VPN. So if I view the job, we can see that it's checked the prerequisites, it's creating the test environment, it's going to prepare the virtual machine, it's going to start the virtual machine, it's going to verify the fact that the test has been completed, it's then going to clean up the test virtual machine, and then it will clean up the test environment before finalizing the test of the failover. So again, this is something that you could potentially record or do with one of your customers to prove that you are providing a service with significant added value. So we've got so far through the virtual machine creation. So if we were to go back to our dashboard, and if we will look for our virtual machines, just needed to give that a quick refresh there, and you can see that we have a running virtual machine that is a test of our ASR. We could check details with regard to that, but effectively it's up and running, it's created its own DNS name, it's allocated itself to the appropriate locations. So therefore, if we go back to our recovery services and drill into our ASR vault, protected items, and our protection group, we can verify that that virtual machine did indeed spring to life. So it's waiting for our action. We can now say the fact that we're happy with the test. Okay, so SQL VM started correctly, tested 27.04.15. The test failover is complete, and please clean up the test environment. And there we go, so it's marked it as complete, and it's now going to clean up the environment as well as the virtual machine, and we have successfully completed a test of our ASR solution. And the recovery, the test failover is now complete. And there is confirmation that the test failover has indeed completed. So we've set up the ASR service within Azure. We've added a server for the synchronization, which is a Hyper-V host to Azure. We have created our protected items, and we have added our servers to those protected items. We've then performed a test failover of one of the virtual machines within that specific environment. If you wish to have ASR do automatic failover for such a service, then what you need to do is you need to create a recovery plan. So I presently don't have one, so let's create a recovery plan. So in there we'll give it a name. So this is our TD Contoso Recovery Plan 1, and our source is going to be that specific hypervisor, and our target is indeed going to be Azure. We then need to stipulate from our protection group which servers are going to be included in this recovery plan. So that is creating the recovery plan. And within the properties of the recovery plan, we've got the ability to stipulate various different actions. So in this particular one, it's monitoring the 3 servers within the actual group itself, and then within there we've got the fact that these virtual machines will start should there be a failure with the on-premise solution. We should be able to expand that, and you can see the 3 virtual machines that are going to be started within this particular solution. You have the ability to specify, for example, a group action. So we could create new group actions, we could stipulate virtual machines, we could add in scripts, and we can specify manual actions to perform as part of the actual failover environment itself. And once the recovery plan group has been created, we could actually try a full failover rather than so we tested the failover of an individual virtual machine. This might be 3 components of an entire solution, so we could do a test failover of the solution, or we could actually do a planned failover as part of a disaster recovery exercise. So in this particular video, we've gone through the creation of the objects required for Azure Site Recovery Services. We have connected our on-premise hypervisor to our Azure estate. We've then created our protection items, scheduled the replication. We've then tested that replication in a planned test failover, and we've then created the recovery plan that would actually be invoked in the event of a disaster or failure of the on-premise solutions. And we could actually do a planned failover again as potentially a DR exercise with the customer present, or again recorded to prove the service that we're actually providing does indeed actually work.